to. Inkay didn't have a direct flight to Sydney, Australia. She first had to stop at Incheon International Airport. Again, she was awed by not just how many people there were, but how many different kinds of people. There were languages and accents she heard and recognized, and others she couldn't even guess at. The excitement turned to fear as she realized that this was the first time she was ever alone. She felt her heart race as she tried to figure out where to go for her connecting flight. But the airport was huge and most of the signs were in languages she couldn't read. She was starting to panic and sweat when she found an airport staff member who directed her to her gate. She had to run, which she quickly found out was something very difficult to do in high heels. She got to her gate right as the last passenger was boarding, her feet already feeling sore and starting to blister as she scanned her ticket and boarded her second plane ever, all within 24 hours. A wave of relief came over Inkay as she walked down the plane's aisle towards her seat. She'd made it. Next stop, Sydney and her future. The wave didn't last long though, as, while trying to lug her heavy blue suitcase forward, she trips, knocking into a man, John, in the middle of putting his suitcase, the exact same kind as hers, into the overhead. John did not look like someone you wanted to get into trouble with. He wore expensive leather trousers and a grey vest. There was a gold chain on his neck which glittered in the light. He was certainly one of those rich guys who had made their millions before the age of 30. "Oh no," she gasped. Inkay fell to the floor, as did her suitcase and John's matching one. John stumbled backwards, catching himself on one of the other seats. "Whoa!" John said once he regained his balance. He looked down at Inkay, worried. "Are all right?" "Yes, Inkay looked at John, and as soon as she did her mouth stopped working. He was handsome, with blonde hair and green eyes, wearing a clearly expensive suit. She had to look away to continue talking. "Yes, I think so." Inkay waited for a moment, thinking, hoping John would reach down and help her up. Instead, he just stared at her. Inkay, completely embarrassed, clumsily scrambled to her feet, grabbed one of the blue suitcases, and stumbled past John. John picked up the other suitcase and put it in the overhead and slammed it shut. Before taking his seat, he watched Inkay struggle down the aisle. "That girl does not know how to walk in heels," he mumbled to himself. He had spent some time looking at her. She was a beautiful girl. She had a round nose and her long Asian hair was jet black. Her beauty was not of this world. John had stolen many looks at her while they were on the plane together. Inkay was thoroughly flustered as she wobbled up and down the aisle looking for her seat. She needed help, and since the only person she even sort of knew was the guy she bumped into, she headed for John. She stopped at John's seat, where he was working on a laptop, and held out her ticket. "Excuse me, do you know where 37A is? Is it around here?" John looked up from his laptop, and Inkay gave him a sweet smile. John pretended to glance at the ticket. "I don't know. I'm not a flight attendant," John said, a little rudely, wiping the smile from Inkay's face. "You should find the stewardess and ask her." Inkay was about to let John know how rude she thought he was when a stewardess walked up. The stewardess looked at Inkay's ticket and told her she was in the wrong part of the plane. This was business class, but her ticket was for economy. Inkay heard a few people snicker, including John, when the stewardess said this and led her through a curtain to her seat. Inkay felt immediately better once she sat down. She reminded herself what her mother had said about different cultures. She may not be as well travelled as some of these people, but Inkay knew she wasn't stupid. She was top of her class at university, and she got into one of the best nursing schools in Australia. Something about that handsome man John, who in her mind was suddenly not as handsome since he'd been so rude, still bugged her though. He seemed smart, wealthy, and well put together. So why was he so impolite? Then she remembered her father's words. All the money and schooling in the world can't help to make a person kind. That comes from the heart." Inkei smiled and relaxed. She knew she had a good heart. Moments after the plane took off, she fell asleep. When she woke up, the plane was touching down in Sydney.